Hello, YouTubes! Welcome back to James Recommends. I'm sorry about the audio issues from last week. My camera had wee devils in it, and by the time we realized it, I was down in California for the Game Developers Conference. Since then, I've gotten a new mic, and I've destroyed my house to make a better setup for this, and spent more hours than I conceivably should have trying to figure out these audio problems. So hopefully this sounds better. That said, this show is never going to be perfect. I don't want to be a YouTube star. I've spent too much of my life working on perfect packaged entertainment, and I love it, but I don't want to be it. So you're going to see me stutter, and you're going to see me stumble, and you're going to see me stop to think. And you're going to see me on the weeks where I haven't slept in a couple of days. And you're going to see me when I've been on the road and haven't gotten a chance to shave. Because that's the time I get to do this, and I love talking about games. I love talking about games that might not have gotten the attention they deserved, and so hopefully you'll bear with me and the format doesn't detract too much from what you can get out of it. But with that said, let's get on to some games. This week was supposed to be all about Game of Thrones. Given the fact that the series is about to restart, I thought it would be a kick to recommend a Game of Thrones game you might not have tried. But I tried most of them, and oh my god, the strategy game. The best Game of Thrones game out there is probably Game of Thrones Ascent, which is the Facebook Congregate iPad game. So if you're looking for a Game of Thrones experience, as much as it pains me, I kind of have to recommend Ascent. It has all of the time-based mechanics and social mechanics that you probably know real well and probably hate. But if you get far enough, there's actually a lot of depth to it, and most importantly, the creators clearly loved the Song of Fire and Ice, and they did a great deal to make sure that the lore of Westeros is weaved into the game, and that all the moral choice in it has that gray-black feel that George R. Martin is so good at delivering. That said, it's still got the binary morality and all this stuff. But if you really got a hankering to play in Westeros, Game of Thrones Ascent. Alright, moving on. I do have a really good fantasy RPG for you, though. I finally got a chance to check out Dragon's Dogma. I had ignored it for some time, thinking it was just an attempt to cash in on the Skyrim craze. But I was completely wrong. This game is way better than it has any right to be. It's kind of Dark Souls meets Skyrim meets Shadow of the Colossus. And if that sentence doesn't sell you, I don't know what will. This is a game that is a true open world game, so much more so than Dark Souls 2. It's also at the difficulty level of Dark Souls. It's not quite up there, but given the fact that it's an open world and you can take on challenges that are much more difficult than anything you should be able to accomplish whenever you feel like it, it really feeds a lot of that Dark Souls drive. It also has some incredible world building to it. As much as I love Skyrim, one of the problems for me with Skyrim was always that the dungeons felt sort of like game pieces. They felt like a place to do some combat encounters and get some loot. And that's not true at all in Dragon's Dogma. In Dragon's Dogma, all the dungeons feel like this holistic, realistic part of the world. When you go into some ruins, you understand the civilization that used to live there, and understand why the monsters moved in, just from the setting, just from the way it's designed. And the level design is fantastic. It creates these intricate, complicated, interesting dungeons full of secrets and side paths. So if that's something that you dig, Dragon's Dogma is completely worth checking out. Also, it's got a ton of bonkers mechanics. I won't go into all of them, but if you play especially a rogue or a warrior, you'll spend a lot of your time climbing up the back of giant monsters to stab cyclopses in the eye and things like that. Just straight up Shadow of the Colossus. And I've never seen anything quite like that. I mean, it really feels epic. It really gives these gigantic creatures a sense of importance and power, and really makes the overcoming of them a a novel and worthwhile experience. So, it has its issues. Primarily, I think that the tutorial is pretty awful. Your first hour of the game, they start you in the slowest part of the game. So, just bear with it. Beyond that, if this is a game you're interested in, spend the $5 extra and get Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen, because there are two versions of this game. They built an expansion for this game that was apparently too big for DLC. So you cannot get the expansion if you don't buy the expansion on disc. But the expansion also includes the entire original game. So get Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen. It includes this 10-hour incredible dungeon that actually is, especially if you go to it early enough, of the difficulty of anything in Dark Souls. So I highly recommend it if you're really looking for that dungeon crawl, especially if you've already burnt through your Dark Souls 2 and are looking for something to fill that void. This is an incredible experience. So yeah, this week I recommend Dragon's Dogma. See you all next week.